Woo! Am I on? Am I here? Can you hear me? Can you see me? All right, awesome. This is really weird being on this side of things, and I don't know. All right, thank you, Lola, for putting this trust in me tonight. I'm a little nervous. I've never done a live webinar before, so this is going to be fun for everybody, I think. Thanks, Lola. All right, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Caitlyn of Caitlyn Eakins Photography. I'm down in sunny Southwest Florida. I have a little kid of my own. He's pretty precious. He's about to be 2. He's usually my main subject. But I also photograph a lot of families, a lot of babies. Wish I could do more births. Births would be amazing. Births are killer. But Photoshop is totally my jam. It is where I spend the most of my time, and I really, really, really love it. I can start talking and rambling a lot, so if you have questions, just like cut in there. I'm going to try to watch the chat. I don't know how that's going to work once I get going here and once I start screen sharing. But before I start screen sharing, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about what I use as far as what I use to edit. So I seriously work on like a $300 laptop. There is nothing special about my computer whatsoever. It is a Toshiba satellite. It is nothing fancy. I got it at Staples. So please don't think that your equipment is what would stop you from doing something like this, because it won't. It lags a little bit sometimes, but little patience and you can get through it. The other thing I really highly recommend if you plan on doing any type of editing, like a lot, is a tablet. I use a small Wacom, and it's not even a totally upgraded one. It's an Intuos 4. There is, again, nothing special. I've had this for like 5 years. So it does me well. It's got little programmable buttons for like brush sizes and stuff, which I don't use as often as I should, because I know the shortcuts on the keyboard. Know your keyboard shortcuts. Oh my gosh, it is a total lifesaver. The other thing I highly, highly, highly recommend is an external hard drive. Most of you guys know that keeping files on your computer slows it down big time. If you keep everything on an external, you're going to extend the life of your computer, which I know everybody really wants to do. So the more full your computer gets, the slower it will become. There's not a lot of people know that, but yeah. And then the last thing is probably one of my favorite things, and it's my calibrator. I'm not getting paid by these companies. I just really love them. I use the Spider 5 Express. It's less than $100 on Amazon. And I calibrate like once every 1 to 2 months. And I calibrate for this lovely lighting you see in my office here. I have a daylight bulb behind me, and I have a really awful orange light in front of me. So I edit in really crappy light, but with this handy dandy tool, it is always correct, which is absolutely phenomenal. And calibrating is intimidating, but it's really super simple. And if you're printing, it's like totally necessary to calibrate. Some people have gotten lucky. I was talking to some girls in the group the other day, and they're like, I don't calibrate at all. And I'm like, you're getting really lucky with your prints, because they shouldn't be turning out as nice as you say they are. But I mean, hey, whatever works, right? Okay, so I'm going to attempt this screen sharing thing with you guys now, and hopefully it will work. Let's see. Okay, can everybody see my screen here? I hope everybody can. It should be Photoshop. Can you see it? Yep, thank you, Lola. Awesome. Okay, beautiful. All right. So I'm gonna, oh, good, the little chat stays up. That's good. All right, so let's throw this over here. All right. So what's on the screen right now is my mock-up. So that's my little guy right there, and he absolutely loves deer. So I wanted to make an image that reflects his love of deer, and I wanted him to be kind of interacting with them a little bit. And um, that was kind of the goal of the image. I wanted something really big and pretty and unique for our wall in our house. So I knew I wanted to have my kid, and I wanted to have deer, and I wanted to be in the woods. So starting out with a plan is like the #1 key thing. If you just start grabbing all of these random resources and stock images and stuff, and you just start throwing it into Photoshop and you start cutting stuff out and it's not looking right, it's probably because you didn't start with a plan. Because if you start with a plan and you shoot for the plan, everything is going to come together a lot more cohesively. So this was my mock-up. This was my plan. So I already had the background. That's a little area in my little town that's like super hidden. And I had just shot a little photograph of the trees and the little path. And then I had the photo of my kid, which wasn't lit right for this at all. And then the deer, all 3 of them are stock from DeviantArt, which I just typed it into the chat there. It's a great website for some stock. You have to be really careful though, because the whole website is not stock. Only the stock section of it is, and then you have to read the terms for each artist. But it is really, really phenomenal because the majority of it on there is free. So I got all 3 of these deer for free, which was really cool. Okay. So trying to find a happy spot for this chat and it's not liking me. Okay. So my mock-up there is where I started. I kind of got the idea in my head of the composition that I kind of wanted. I knew I wanted a family of deer in the woods, all good. So my next step then, once I had my mock-up, was to start shooting. So flat light is, especially when you're starting out, is going to be your best friend. So, you know, shaded areas. When I do composites, I try to stay in the shade. I don't do a ton of sunset, sunrise, like I would if I were doing like family portraits and things like that. I try to keep it fairly flat, just because you can always add light and shadows. But once you have light and shadows, it's a little harder to, well, it's a lot harder to take that away. So my next step was to shoot. So I shot my subject, which again, it's my little guy, and there's my boyfriend. He's trying to get Cam to look at approximately where the deer would be. So it really helps if you're working with kids to have kind of a spotter, a helper, somebody to kind of direct, because I tried to shoot him on my own and it just failed absolutely miserably. So trying to kind of get him in the pose I wanted. I wanted him to sit there. He wasn't wanting to sit. So I went, all right, screw it. He can stand. And it was, it worked out. So I did a shot with Cam and my boyfriend and Cam looking, and then I did a shot with nothing. The only thing I failed to do was bring my tripod, because if I had my tripod, everything would have been lined up perfectly. So since it was not lined up perfectly, I had to manually align my backgrounds so that I could edit Todd out, and I'll show you guys that in a minute. I'm just kind of walking you through the process, and then I'll go through and show you how I did everything. So then the next step to it would be the composite itself. So this is me fixing the background, combining the backgrounds, getting rid of Todd, putting in the deer, and kind of getting everything basically where it needs to be. The step after that would be relighting and details. So you can kind of see I added water. I got rid of the design on his shirt. I added some light up at the top there. So, and again, I'm going to really dive into Photoshop and get into all this with you guys in just a minute. I And then the final touches, which for this one was simply getting rid of that light right behind his head. I wanted and him to be a little darker. And then for my wall, so this is what I actually posted on my website and on my Facebook. But the actual final image on my wall is actually a painted version. So it looks like this, which is really pretty. And there's a cool program that does that too. So you can see some of my resources here. My deer, I actually cut out completely, which took some time. I think he probably took about an hour to cut out, maybe 45 minutes. So it's tedious work. It's very tedious. And then this little deer came already cut out. I just had to touch him up, which was really nice. So, oh, thanks, Lola. It looks really pretty too. If depending on, oh yeah, I can bring it in here and show you guys at the end what it actually looks like, the painted version. It's just hanging on the wall. All right, so, all right. So the first thing that I did was align my subject with my background, which again, if I had used a tripod, it would be a simple overlay and just paint Todd out, which would have been way easier than what I actually had to do. So I'm going to open up this one in Photoshop. We'll just queue up there. All right. So, and I am using my pen on my tablet now. I was using my mouse. Now I'm using a pen, mostly because it has pressure sensitivity, which is the most amazing thing. So you don't have to adjust your opacity and flow so much when you're editing. And I'm not going to go into a ton of details as to what each of these tools do, because that could be like an entire lesson on its own. Yeah, I mean, any of you who've worked in Photoshop know that it's a really comprehensive program, and if I start getting into what each tool does, you'll probably just hate me. It'll be tedious just learning the program. But I'll explain what tools I'm using and how I'm using them as I go. So I'm going to pull in the back. I should have done that in reverse. That's okay. We'll flip the layers. All right. So I'm just going to pull that background image in to Photoshop, and it allows you to transform it as soon as you throw it in. I'm just going to leave it centered right there. Hit enter and let it go. I'm going to unlock my background because I actually want it on the front. So you just tap the lock to unlock it, and I'm going to flip-flop the layers by dragging over here on the right side. All right, so the little eyeballs make things appear and disappear. So you can see the layers are not aligned at all, which is absolutely awful. So I like to down my opacity, and I grab my move tool, which is just that top tool, and I can kind of push and pull and figure out approximately where these need to be lined up. So you can use the arrows on your keyboard, and you can see it's really not lined up at all. I think I actually moved in the middle of these frames. So basically, I would come in here, I do some transforming, I do some rotating, I move it around, and I'm kind of looking at areas like where these trees are. So you can see as I move them, like these trees will start aligning, but these trees don't, so we probably need to make it a little smaller. Keep moving. So, I mean, even this was just a process. And again, tripod, don't be me in this situation. Okay, so let's pretend that these are aligned. I'm gonna up my opacity again, and I'm gonna add a layer mask to my top layers because I wanna paint Todd out of here. I don't obviously want him in this image. So layer mask is the little circle in a square down at the bottom of your layer panel. You tap it and it creates a white box next to on your image layer. So masks, for those who don't know, are like super cool erasers that don't actually erase anything. And every time I've taught a Photoshop class, I mean, the first thing people do is, how do I erase this? How do I erase this? How do I erase this? Don't erase anything. You should never erase anything. You should never have a reason to erase anything. You can hide things, but don't erase them because you never know what you might need or want to bring back. So on a layer mask, the key is that white shows, black hides. So right now, my layer mask right here is white. So to hide Todd, I would need to paint with black. So you can flip-flop your foreground and background colors here. The X button on your keyboard also does that really quickly, so you can hide and show really quick while you're working. Really great shortcut, X button. All right, so I'm gonna switch over to my brush. I normally keep these on like 50-50 as far as flow and opacity up here. Just kind of in that 50 to 60 range. Mode is on normal. If you find your brush doing weird things that it's not supposed to be doing, it's probably because the mode has changed. And then as far as brush size, the brackets, change your brush size really quick and easy. So that is another really amazing shortcut, is your brackets. All right, Control+ to zoom. And I'm going to get in here. I tend to work pretty close to my work. Yeah, I like to work really close. So I am painting on top of the layer mask. You can see the layer mask is selected because it has the little white corners. I could also paint on the picture itself, but I'm painting on the layer mask. It has little white corners on it. And I am painting with black. So that is going to make Todd go away. And right now I'm low opacity, low flow, so I'm having to go over it multiple times to get him totally gone. I'm gonna go away. I'm gonna pull these up to 100 just because I want him to go away really quickly. You can hold the space bar while you're doing things like this and it becomes the hand tool. So really fast way to kind of pop around your screen. And Control-0 fits it back on the screen there. So actually those are aligned pretty well, all things considered. Okay, so Todd is now gone. Beautiful. All right, I'm gonna come back over to Bridge real quick and I'm gonna open up that first composite page. So this is the composite already done that I'm opening up and it's layered so you can see all of my layers in here, which is a little insane, but we're going to go through it one by one here. All right, so you can see, oh, Todd's not in this one. This was already after I removed Todd. See, not even following my own rules. Okay, so this is what I had ended up with after this step. So I had cleaned up all of this lady, which really easy. I typically, if I'm going to be doing a composite, I do a rough cleanup with the spot healing. Spot healing basically takes an average of, oop, I am still on the layer mask. See, don't do that. Actually, I'm going to flatten it so this makes more sense. So I flattened my image. I have a shortcut set for flatten, but you can just go up to the little hamburger and flatten. I have my shortcut set to Control-Y. That's not the default. That's the old default for like CS2, and they changed it, but I liked it, so I changed it back. You can always change your shortcuts, which is amazing. So you can make it really nice things that you remember. So I'm gonna just clone her out here. And I usually just kind of do a rough job, especially if I'm gonna be adding things and doing other things and whatnot. Get rid of the sidewalk over here. My computer's a little laggy, bear with me. I'm doing a lot of things right now with the chat, so. All right. So we can kind of just get rid of all this stuff. Cool. And then if I find anything repeating, like these two little plants look alike, we just kind of make them go away. And just kind of keep cloning until, or not cloning, what am I doing? What is this tool called? Healing. Not cloning, healing. My brain is not functioning today. All right, so basically go through, clean up, do all of that. And then my next step is I got rid of all of these bright spots. And I wanted to make sure it didn't look like a park. I wanted to make him look like he was totally in this like beautiful, serene, outdoor, gorgeous world. So want to say I painted it in. So I could be way off on what I actually did to do this. I know I tried quite a few things to change these highlights. So I added a new layer, and I'm using my brush, and I'm going to choose a color from my background, maybe like one of these green colors, and I'm going to paint. Doesn't it look so good? Oh my gosh. So I'm just going to paint in over these yucky dark areas. I probably used a lot lighter of a brush last time, so I wouldn't have hard lines, but for the sake of the demo, you guys can see what it actually does here. And then I changed the blending mode. Blending modes are really awesome for when you start doing stuff like this. You start painting on an image and you're like, oh, that's really gross. Blending modes allow you to change what the images look like. So I think I used hard light on this one, actually. Oh, no, I didn't. Maybe I used that one. No. Okay, well, let's stick with hard light. So then, again, with my masking, you can go in, drop those back down, and kind of pull back things like that. So obviously this is not, I'm going way faster right now than I actually did. The final image that I showed you guys at the beginning took about 16 hours from start to finish, just for editing, not shooting, not planning, just editing on the computer, sitting on my butt in my office. Yeah. So these take time. That's your biggest tool with a composite, is time. The longer you take, the better it's going to look, quite honestly. I know it's sort of opposite of what we try to do with family sessions and things like that. You know, you want to be quick, you want to be fast, you want to apparently be repetitive. You know, we use presets, we use actions, we use things to make the process faster. And for a regular family session, I edit in under an hour, a whole family session. But composites are the opposite. You want to take the time. You want to make sure that it is absolutely spectacularly perfect. So here's my background fixes. And I did blur it some on top of my painting. So I can show you guys how I blurred it as well, if you would like to see how I did that. It's actually really simple. So basically you duplicate your background, or duplicate whatever layer you're working on. You can right click it and duplicate, or Control J is the do I do client? I would love to do client composites. I do have a cosplayer that's going to be hiring me to do some Disney composites and some superhero composites, and I'm really super stoked about doing those. Yeah, I wish people would hire me to do them, but they normally, I mean, I offer them, but they normally see the price tag and they're like, oh, you're fucking crazy. So yeah, no, I don't typically do that. I do include a large piece of wall art in my composite packages, so it's not like they're just walking with a digital file and having to print it themselves. They do get like the whole final thing. It's not just, oh, here I edited it, go put it on Facebook. Like they get the whole thing. It comes with the shoot, it comes with all the editing, they get revisions, they can even come sit with me while I'm finalizing as well, and direct as I do it, because it's ultimately going to go up on their wall as some kind of big piece of art. So I wish more people would do it. Yeah, it's definitely a dedication to finding those clients. Not everybody understands the time that goes into something like this. All right, so let's come back in here. And so blurring the background, so you can kind of see it's quite a big difference there. Well, that's with all the darkening and the blurring. I did those on one layer. The blurring is pretty simple. I literally filter, blur. I think I used a Gaussian blur. I might have used a lens blur on this one, but for the sake of the demo, we're doing a Gaussian blur, which is like the most common standard blur that we all use in Photoshop. Yeah. And you just kind of pick a number that fits the blur you want. So 3 is probably not blurry enough. And I'm looking at my trees right now, so that's way too much. It was kind of happy right where I started. So like right around 11, and we'll hit OK. So then on this lovely blurry background, we create a layer mask. And again, I am all about the masks. I would go in and I would simply brush back everything that I want to be sharp. Now, I don't typically work like this. I work like this, if not even closer. Down on the bottom left down here is what percent you're working at. Quite honestly, I'm usually at 100% when I'm doing composites. And I get in here with really tiny brushes and I find my edges, because you don't want weird stuff like this to happen. You want to make sure that those lines stay crisp where they're supposed to be crisp. So this is also why a pen tablet is a huge benefit to the process, because I can literally just draw. How do my eyes still work? I wear glasses. Yeah, I don't know. I have really awful eyesight. I probably shouldn't do these. I'm probably making my eyes way worse by doing composite. All right, so I'm gonna delete this background, this funny one I just created, and I'm gonna just turn on the actual one. So this has the blur removed on the trees. I removed the blur in the foreground because obviously that's going to be in focus with the kid. He's in focus, obviously. But you can see the total difference between the original, which is all in focus, and then the image with the extra blur added, which adds a nice extra little bit of depth. Oh, my kid just got home and he's crying. I hope you guys can't hear that. Okay, so then the next step was to start adding in the deer. Oh, no, actually the next step, I kind of toned and changed the exposure on the image. So that's what this curves layer is here. And I kept my kiddo kind of bright. You can see I masked off him. Sorry if you can hear him yelling. So that is my curves. It's just a curves layer. There's nothing special about it. I literally just darkened the image. So really simple curve layer. And then again, I used my happy little masks to mask off the darkness on him. So I wanted him to stay nice and bright because he's my subject. I didn't want him to darken into the background. Then I added the deer. So we have mom deer and baby deer, which were already cut out. I just had to do touch-ups on them. However, Daddy Dear came to me like this. His color did not match. He was not the right size. Well, none of them were the right size. I had to play with that. So, oh my goodness. I am really, really sorry if you can hear my kid. He's not happy with me right now. Okay, so when you pull an image into Photoshop, it becomes what's called a smart object or a smart layer. I'm sorry. Todd, he really doesn't like when I'm in my office. Okay, so when you pull an object into Photoshop, it becomes a smart layer, which, sorry, I'm making sure he's okay. Okay, they're taking him outside. Oh my gosh. It's moments you feel like an awful mother. Okay, so you pull an object into Photoshop, it becomes a smart layer. So that's what this little icon on top of the layer designates, is that it's a smart object. So smart objects are really cool. You can resize them, make them bigger, make them small. Well, make them only as big as they originally were. Make them smaller, as tiny as you want, and then you can make them big again, and they don't lose quality. Basically, a smart object always refers back to the original image. So it's referring back to the original quality, the original everything. So if you actually want to adjust anything on a smart object, come on, you double click it and it opens up in a new window. And then you can do all of your adjustments here, and then you save it, and all the adjustments show back up on the original image. Since I already know I'm not going to be resizing him too much, smart objects are kind of a hassle. So I'm going to right click my layer and I'm going to rasterize it. So rasterize is making it no longer a smart object. So all the edits I do are going to happen right here. If I double click it, I get the standard layer style pop up that comes up anytime you double click anything or any layer in Photoshop. So he's a normal plain old pixel layer now. And again, I'm obsessed with my layer mask, so I'm going to add a layer mask. And again, what I would do is pull into, at least I want to say I would probably go in more. I'm at 200% right now. And again, probably up my brush a little bit here. And I go around the whole guy, and this takes flipping forever, but working really close to your work and being really detail oriented is what's going to get the best results. So definitely takes a certain type of person, I think, to do things like composites. Okay, so basically I spent like an hour cutting out said deer. We're gonna delete that, and I will show you our beautiful buck all cut out. And I hid him behind the tree, so I masked out his butt as well. He has no butt. I'll show you, move him. See, he has no butt. But that's okay. All right, so yeah, the things we do. All right, so after I placed in my deer, they're just kind of sitting there. They don't look like they exist within this composite at all right now. They're there, but you can tell that they're just pasted in, and that's not the point of a composite. The point is making it super realistic. So I added in some shadows. So I actually have multiple layers of shadows here, because one is just under the baby, and then one is under the mom as well, because let me see here. Okay, so this one's under the mom because there needed to be shadow of her on top of the baby. So lots of little tiny details here. Let's do that again so you can see. So there's shadow under mom, and there's shadow behind mom on the baby. And then baby needed shadow, and Cam needed shadow. So I added more. I also added a little extra under mom, like really deep under her legs, to add that extra little bit of dimension there. So it's really the little details that go into a good composite. And all I did for those shadows is it's literally just black, or I think I used a dark green, and I literally just brushed it underneath. I will show you. There's absolutely nothing special about my shadowing technique at all. I used a very light brush so that I could build it up, and I literally just shadowed underneath, shadowed around the butt, and I think I probably changed the opacity. I think I did use black though. I don't think I used green. You could also change the layer mode as well in order to change kind of what it looks like. You can darken it, lighten it, so you can pick something a little more realistic, maybe like that. So you can actually see more of the grass detail behind it. So the blending modes are really nice for things like that. So I added my shadows, and then on my buck here, his feet are just kind of floating, which he's just kind of cut off there, and that's not realistic at all. Looks like we just chopped his feet off. So I had to give him feet, because he did not have real feet in the original either. They were kind of chopped off weirdly. I don't know if it was the crop or if there was grass in front of it or something, but basically I did the same thing I did with the shadows. I just added a new layer, and I went in with a brush that was roughly the color. When shortcuts don't work. Brush. I went in with a tiny brush. None of my shortcuts are working. Oh, it's a fun day. Okay. And I went in and I just kind of roughly figured out where his feet would go, and I painted them in right behind the trees, obviously doing it a little better than this. This is my fast version, so you can just kind of see my technique. So, and then I think what I did actually was like paint a bunch in and then masked it back out, which is my typical sloppy way of doing things. I kind of color in a lot and then go back in and refine it. Actually, that's not too bad. So you can kind of see his fake feet there, but I'm gonna delete what I just did. Put in his real feet. So that's, I literally just painted in feet. Nothing special, but he needed feet. Okay. So the next thing I did for this shot was I relit Cam. So the relighting is pretty easy. Basically, this is what we end up with. I kind of wanted a nice little spotlight coming through the trees, like the sunlight was coming through and hitting him, again, enhancing him quite a bit more. So I actually found this really cool technique on YouTube that I will show you guys how to do right now. I'm going to do it just above all of this so that I'm not confusing anybody with my layers. So I create a new layer, and I'm going to use my polygon lasso tool to create a big spotlight shape. So you create cool spotlight, and then you feather it a ton. So I'm gonna feather it by like, let's just go 50 for funsies. And then you are going to do a curves layer. So layer, new adjustment layer, curves, and you're going to brighten it up just a bit. Okay, so, and you can do a little more than that if you want, but doesn't need a lot because we're actually going to enhance this quite a bit more. Okay, so after each of these, I was masking it off of my subject because I didn't want him to be super, super, super bright. So I was pulling it off of him just a little bit so that he wasn't too bright. And I was also kind of softening down here because I didn't really want a ton of light fall off down there, and I didn't really want any on my deers, so we got rid of that. Okay, so then you do this again, but you stay within your original cone. So you're creating, basically we're going to create 3 cones of varying size all within each other. And you do the same thing. You feather it, right click, feather, 50, layer, new adjustment layer, curves, and again, brighten it. So basically you have this wide cone of light, a middle cone of light, and then a really super strong. So we're creating a spotlight. So a spotlight isn't just like one big strong bit of light, it fades in from the outside. So again, brush off of my subject. And since it's light, it can be a little sloppy. It doesn't have to be super perfect. And then again, whoop, don't need a new layer, sorry. One more super tiny inside, right there. Feather, layer, new adjustment layer. Yeah, I didn't need a new layer at the beginning of this. I don't know why I did that because I'm making adjustment layers. Brighten it up. And again, mask it off of anything that you don't want to be super bright. And I like to group these all together in a lovely little folder, because you can actually group all of your layers like I did here with my composite. You select the ones you want in it, and you tap the little folder, and it pops them into a group. So what I just did is that spotlight. And again, you can adjust the opacity on each of these layers. If you don't want them to be super duper bright, you can adjust the actual curve again if you want to, making it brighter or darker each individual one. And you can adjust the layer masks on each one as well. So lots of settings and things to play with within that, but it's a really cool way to create a spotlight that's like super customizable. I'm gonna trash that. Okay, so that was my light before there. It's the one I created before was quite a bit softer. Okay, so then we're almost to the end of the basic composite here. So then the vignette is just a vignette. I literally took a black, big black soft paintbrush and put it around the edges of the image to darken it up. Easy peasy. Get rid of that. Okay, so that is my composite, my base composite. So we went from that with, we got rid of Todd to some semblance of a really cool image. For me, it wasn't quite there. A lot of people would stop at this point and be like, yeah, it looks really good. It looks like, yeah, everything's got shadows. It's awesome. It wasn't good enough for me. I needed a little more. So at this point, I save and I flatten. So again, you can go to the little hamburger and say flatten image, but I have my lovely little shortcut. And then I save it as something totally different because I don't want to override all the work I did on this composite. I tend to have multiple files when I do composites. Every like major step that I finish, I'll flatten and start at the bottom again. It's really helpful for keeping track of things. So like once my composite's done, if I want to start adding like relighting and things like that, I don't want to have to worry about all of those other layers within my file and how it's going to interact. I just want it to interact with my final image. So by flattening, I I'm back to that one solid image. Okay, I'm not going to say that. Okay, so come back over here to bridge real quick because I'm going to open up my relit image. So this was my second step. Well, not my second step, but my second image. So this one has a lot less layers. Okay, so this is where we ended on the composite just a minute ago. It's one solid flat layer all by itself. There's no layers within this right now. The deer are, and the kid in the background, they're all one beautiful solid thing. But I wanted more. I wanted more details. I wanted more interest. So I have this really cool plugin called Flood. It's by a company called Flaming Pear. And I am typing it into the chat for you guys so you guys can search that if you want to. Their website is kind of dodgy. Like it doesn't look like a professional website at all. At least it didn't a couple months ago. But the plugins are freaking awesome. So actually I don't even know if I have it installed right now. I do not, and I apologize that I don't have this installed right now. My computer decided it wanted to die about 2 months ago, and I did not finish reinstalling everything. So super fun. So basically, it allows you to add water. And you can do like all kinds of settings. You can do like ripples, waves, smoothness, and it totally realistically reflects the image. So the puddle literally maybe took 10 minutes to create the puddle. It took no time at all. And I did mask some of it out. It creates it on its own layer. So it makes it pretty easy to mask out. On this layer, I also fixed his hair. On my kid, you can see his little bumps in his hair went away. And I took all the logo crap off of his shirt because I didn't want any of that on there and be distracting. So some minor touch-ups on this layer besides the water. Just little things. And I just use Liquify for his hair. So nothing super special. And actually, I don't know if anyone has really. You can't liquefy on a locked layer. So you have to unlock your layer by tapping the little lock. So, I mean, anyone who has never used Liquify, it's pretty straightforward. All of these little tools allow you to push and pull things. Forward warp, I think, is the one as photographers we use the most. And it allows you to literally just like fold things in. So I can get rid of those weird bumpy things in his head. So pretty simple there. And then for his shirt, I just used the heel tool to get rid of all the little junk. So again, really simple stuff. For the lovely glow at the top of the image, I used the Greater Than Gatsby Vivid Amber from the Innocence collection. But it is just a really simple, what do you call it? It's a gradient. All it is a gradient with a color. So it's actually really simple to do yourself. Creating gradients in Photoshop is not hard. You literally, so this is going from color to clear. Pretty simple. Gradient tool is the little one that looks like a gradient. Who knew? And then you pick whatever color you want it to be. So in this case, I wanted like a nice, pretty well, amber, golden hue. And then you simply, you'd want it on its own new layer, has to be a pixel layer, and you drag and pull to create the gradient. And then you can go in and with a brush and kind of pull stuff back in and out. So that's, I'm sorry, my phone is going on. Pulling guides down. There we go. All right, so you can basically do things like this, get rid of some of it, and then I'm pretty sure there is some kind of layer matte, blending mode on those so that it's not so, yes, it is a soft light blending mode. So that's my lovely little light, and it's only at 61%. So it's simple, but it adds a nice little effect there. It adds a nice little bit of warmth to the image, and you can see it actually stretches all the way down to the deer and my kid, so that's kind of nice. Get rid of that. And then the last thing I did on this was I added a sort of like specks and dust. We're in the woods, it's Florida. We have lots of little bugs, whether it's mosquitoes or love bugs or just whatever. There are tons and tons and tons of bugs down here, and they catch light and they add a really cool sort of effect to a lot of images if you're shooting in the evening. So I kind of wanted that effect. So I literally went and found a stock image of some bokeh, some whatever, bouquet, whatever you call it. And we all pronounce that differently, with some dust, and pulled it in there. And then as you can see, my mask is pretty crazy. I masked it off of a lot of this image, and I did put it on a blending mode. The lighter color got rid of that black background, so it was just the specks. And then I masked off certain areas and kept it. So you can see, like, all up in here, there's little specks and dust, and in here there's little specks, but I didn't want it on him, and I didn't want it on my deer. So, and I didn't want it over here in the dark where it would distract from all of the beautiful stuff happening in the middle. So I masked out a ton of that. So that's where that ended. From that point, I flattened it again. And I actually went and posted it in a couple groups, because second, third, fourth, 100th set of eyes for a composite is always ideal. I don't always trust just myself to, I've been looking at this image for 16 hours, what could be better? What could I do that could be better? So we've got a couple private photography groups for my local area with, a couple hundred photographers, as opposed to, groups like Babetown, which has thousands, which I love, don't get me wrong, but a group of just like 100 really, really close, super close people is that personally. Like, I know probably a third of the photographers in my local group personally. I have met them, we've hung out, we've shot together. So it's really like a good group of people that are local and can, tell me what's going on. And now I have Babetown now, so I could post stuff like this in Babetown, which is cool. So the last thing I was told in my local group was, the image is really amazing, but he's too bright. He looked too bright to some people. So I was like, okay, well, that's simple enough. So I literally just took the burn tool, super old school photography, right? And I literally just burned in, I think we're mid-tones, there we go. Burned in around him a bit, burned in the tree a bit. And then on him, I did actually do, I didn't burn him. I used a curves layer and a layer mask to darken him back up. But that was it. So this is where it ended. This is where I would be done, and it would go on Facebook, and ta-da, awesome, beautiful ending to our story there. I cannot believe I have kept this under an hour. I am in total shock right now. Okay. Anyone, I know I flew through this. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody who's still here? I don't even know if anyone is still on. I can't see who's on. Ink Lola. So we went from this image to, oh, nope, didn't want to do that. Wrong button. To this. So really nice. Totally different, but a lot of fun. And I'm always open. If you guys have questions, you can just feel free to message me on Facebook. If it's something quick, I'm always down for questions and whatever, and it's all good. Let me stop my screen sharing now, and I will come back to you. Can you see me again? Am I back? Yay. Hi. Okay, so can you see me? Am I visible again? Did I do that right? I don't know. Beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna run real quick out of the room, and I'm gonna grab that final painting so you can see what it actually turned out as. Enjoy my beautiful office for 10 seconds. All right. Sorry, probably should have had this before, but you can see it's a nice little piece that is up on our wall in our living room. It's actually part of like this huge photo wall with like I think there's like 20 photos up on the wall with like little sculptures and, you know, crazy like eclectic photo wall thing, but it's the centerpiece for it, which I really liked. So yeah, but that's it. That's me. If anyone has any questions, if anyone's still here, I know we flew through it. But yeah, composites are fun. I do Photoshop lessons, which is always pretty cool. We can dig in a lot deeper that way. But yeah, the painting program, for anyone who is interested, that I got that final effect with the painting is Topaz Labs Impression. So I just threw that into the chat as well. That's a really cool, they got a lot of really cool, they're standalone programs and plugins, I think, but really awesome tools that they offer, which is pretty cool. So I'm gonna throw it back over to Lola. And
yay! That was so awesome. I took so many notes.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Photoshop is still so new to me. I just recently learned like what's it called? Frequency separation for skin.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah.
Yeah. So it's so new to me, but I'm definitely gonna try something. I have to plan something out. It's so, I don't know.
I actually did sketches for this one before I tried a mock-up.
Did you?
Yeah, I really crappy stick figure sketches and like just bubbles and like I want trees here and I want it here. Like really super crappy. I don't draw.
Right. But, and well, I think it's so I don't know. I would love to see something more like with adults, and then maybe I could like try that because I don't have kids, and I feel like a lot of them are with kids.
They are. Well, because adults tend to not be as fun and whimsical.
I know. I know. But I'm gonna try something, and if you can do anything anytime soon with like any adults or anything like that.
I have a shoot with my best friend on the beach this Saturday, so I was thinking about maybe trying to shoot something for that, but if not, she's always willing and ready to try anything with me. So hopefully I can
love that. I want to try some new stuff for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I will put the replay up on the Coterie, and I'm trying to think if I had anything else for you guys. I don't think so. Now, if you guys have any comments and you're watching the replay, you can just tag Caitlyn below.
Yeah, for sure.
Comments.
If you have any questions, you can tag me, message me, whatever. I'm open.
Okay, good. Thanks for watching, Mary.
Bye.
Bye.